What are the statistics saying about the state of mental health in America?
Wow, they actually are saying some very negative things. We've had an increase in just about every aspect of mental health issues in this country. We're talking about depression, anxiety, drug use, suicide, domestic violence, murder. A lot of cases of police being called for disputes that has significantly increased during this pandemic, which is tied to the overwhelming nature that this pandemic has had on the public. There are, of course, aspects of the society which we know are failing, and there are aspects of this society that are so demonic and so full of debauchery that the people in general are not satisfied. And when it comes to this biblical type pandemic, people are looking for answers and they're not finding it in this society. And as with this vaccine, there's so much propaganda to keep our minds in certain areas. For instance, the number of deaths that have happened with the coronavirus in the United States is still less than those that died with heart attacks, still less than those that have died from cancer. But we have been so inundated with this information of this pandemic that many people are feeling overwhelmed and feeling that they are in somewhat of a purgatory. So in general, those are the statistics. I don't know their specific numbers, but every one of those categories that I mentioned, suicide, domestic violence, drug use, those are all up like 10, 15, 20%.
Now, what has happened since the pandemic? What would your thoughts, or what would you say? Would the increase be contributed or attributed to the quarantine, or could it be just the propaganda only? What are your thoughts on why this increase has happened and continues to rise?
Yes, that's an extremely interesting and important question, because there are many studies that are saying that in general, even before this pandemic, that people that live in congested environments, the inner city type situations, that lends to a leaning towards having anxiety, depression, anger problems, not being able to feel like you can calm down, relax. And so that was a lot of the information that was out before the pandemic. And now that we're in the pandemic over a year now in the United States, and of course, this is a global issue, but I'm speaking directly to the United States, people are starting to feel the effects of not being able to go outside. There's so much fear that some people are afraid to even leave their homes, as many of us have obviously seen when you're driving down the street and there are people in their cars with a mask on.
Right.
That is an aspect of fear. That's not scientific that they're doing that. And so I think there are a lot of people that are afraid to go outside and enjoy some outside time. Most of the times when I pass by parks, there aren't very many people in the parks, where if we understood how to take care of ourselves, we could go to the park and do some exercise, some walking,
Right.
getting some sunshine, and just make sure that you maintain your social distancing. And so that aspect, I think, is a large part of it. And then the other is the inability of a lot of people, because of the fear again, to interact with their own family members. And there should be some distancing that we do. That makes sense in a pandemic. But the point is that is affecting people, that they're not able to be physically in the communities that typically supported them prior to the pandemic.
Hmm. And what are your suggestions to people who are struggling with their mental health?
Yes, I would say, first of all, that we have to put things in context. Personally, I put my love, my fear, my admiration for the God that I serve primary to everything that I do. I try to pray before any time I have a consultation. I try to keep my prayers up every day, especially in a time like this where we have more time to set our schedule and not be taken out too much away from your house. But the point that I'm getting to is that whoever the God is that you serve, you should get into understanding what that scripture says about the time that we're living in. I personally believe that Minister Louis Farrakhan is the mouthpiece of the God that I serve. And so when he had his July 4th, 2020 presentation to the entire world, he gave us some information. He told us what to do to try to grasp onto the reality of God. And so if we are feeling in despair, if we are feeling like we have no way out of this situation, my suggestion is that you go to God. If you're a Christian, then go and read the book that talks about what these times are. If you claim to Judaism, then go to the Old Testament and read the different stories. And then I'll finalize that with this. When I read the Bible or the Quran, it talks about Abraham, talks about Noah, talks about Lot, talks about Jesus, talks about Job, talks about a lot of different prophets. In the Quran, there are a few different ones, Ahad, Tamud. These are situations and people that have talked about situations like this, where the governments, oppressive governments, would have people in these very peculiar situations. And the people of God always looked like they were crazy. They're always considered as just talking crazy, and we don't need to follow those foolish people. In today's time, you really need to consider that the generalized media, that the information that you're hearing spewed from the most common places are probably not the best information for you. You probably need to do a little more digging. And then when you start finding information that starts to benefit your life, like How to Eat to Live by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, if you get into that book and it starts to improve your health, now you have something that you can hold on to. Well, at least I know this is true. Let me go check out some more information by this man and see what else he taught that may be beneficial to me, my family, and the community that I serve.
Right. Now, my last question may be a little hard for some to do, which is to identify that they're struggling with mental health issues. For those of us in families with or congested areas, if you see someone in your family that might be struggling with a mental health issue, what are some of the things that you should look out for?
Yeah, so that is extremely important, and I always use the reality of what do you know about this person that is your family member, the person that is your loved one. What is their routines? When you see them, what is kind of their countenance? Are they usually upbeat? Are they usually kind of laid back? Those are the standards that we use to evaluate people that we love. And so if you're in the midst of a person and you see that their countenance is a little lower than you typically see them, that's a perfect avenue to just ask a question. We don't have to ask any label surrounded questions. Just ask questions like, how are you doing? You seem a little different today. Hey, you want to talk? Is there something that's bothering you? Is there something I can help you with? And make sure that we're sincere, because when we're talking about the mental health of people in general, inclusive of those who we love, that we are in the same family of, you should ask the question with the desire to maybe have to spend some time with this person, perking up your ears and doing a lot of listening and a little less talk and a little less giving of advice. Because sometimes the biggest aspect, and this is based on studies, sometimes the biggest aspect of a person's mental health difficulty is they just want to be listened to. They have something that they need to divulge that would actually help them, right? Start to get rid of some of the thoughts that may be containing them in a way that they don't feel freed. And so we should have that type of care and concern to ask those questions, but make sure we're willing to not ask the question just as a byproduct of, let me just speak and move on about my business. If we're truly concerned about somebody's mental health, we have to have a dedication and a sacrifice to say, okay, this might take a half a day. This might take a couple of hours. This might take me having to go back and check with this person over the next couple of days. Because if we don't take that stance, it might be something worse than winding up in a facility or something worse than that. So if we're going to be serious about it and we want to introduce potential help, we have to be ready to be that help that that person needs.
Right. Now, speaking of identifying mental health issues within ourselves and within others, one group that we tend to overlook is the children. Their language or communication may not be as advanced as some adults. So what types of questions would you suggest parents or brothers or sisters, aunts, uncles ask a child that they might fear is dealing with a mental health issue?
Yes, yes. That's wow. That's a profound question. I would say that what I said in the last answer is appropriate, and we have to turn up that patience dial,
Mm.
because you have to take your time when you're listening to a child who may not necessarily have the ability to express what is the problem. But if you take the time to slow down and be patient and listen, maybe you can tune into the way you were as a child. I mean, especially if we're talking about family members, we may be able to tap into that child and understand what they're saying, even though they don't know how to express it very well and express it in a way that everybody else might understand it. But again, that takes patience, and it takes you having some consideration of what are the possible things that could be affecting this child. A child doesn't understand the reality of a viral infection spreading through the air. A child doesn't necessarily understand the reality of what we say when we say somebody died, somebody's in the hospital. They may have some, but I'm talking
Mm.
about young children. They don't necessarily have the connection to what that really means. And so it's going to take some effort on our part to listen, and then not necessarily always want to explain everything so that we think they understand it, but just to explain what it is that they express to us and make sure we stay within the realm of where their understanding is. But we start trying to make ourselves seem important or try to make ourselves seem as if we know so much, sometimes we'll lose children because they're not necessarily interested in what you know or how important you are. They're interested in knowing that you care enough to listen to them and to try to understand.
Right.
A lot of times that will make a child feel amazing. And those are some of the ways that you can greatly change in a quick manner a child's mental health, is by making them feel like they're special, making them feel like they're heard, and making them feel like they were important enough for you to stop all the things that you typically push them away for,
Mhm.
and spend some time with them. That would be amazing to a young person's mental health status.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Akili, for joining us today and for your wonderful insight as always.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, sir. Let's pause for announcements from our sponsors. When we return, Netfa Freeman of the Black Alliance for Peace will be on to talk about the Pan-African Community Action Plan. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button, or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with NNVnews.com.